Welcome back. Overseas, chaos in Turkey leaves at least 9 dead after a day filled with violence. Monday, Turkish security forces clashed with militants in a street firefight in front of the Istanbul police station. Then assailants later fired on police inspecting the scene, and the day ended with 2 women opening fire at the U.S. consulate in Istanbul. For more, we welcome in from Newsmax Washington, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, my old congressional colleague, Pete Hoekstra of Michigan. Also joining us, retired U.S. Army Colonel Patrick Murray. Patrick is the author of the book, Government is the Problem. And Colonel, we'll begin with you. What on earth is going on in Turkey?
Well, J.D., Turkey is essentially fighting 3 enemies now on their southern border, from the Assad regime, ISIS, and then their old arch rivals, the PKK, the Kurdish Workers' Party, and that's creating a lot of tension and instability in the country, and I think it's playing out right now, and it's going to continue to happen.
Pete, in that attack on the U.S. consulate, women were executing the attack. Why women? Is there a broader message to this?
Oh, I think what we've seen in the last number of years is that ISIS and radical jihadist groups and these types of terrorist groups, they've started using women. It's easier for them to get into the perimeter. It's easier for them to, get by whatever security may be out there because they are less suspect. Most security is still looking for male attackers. So if they can use women to get in and get closer to a target, these groups will use women.
Patrick, of course, Turkey started taking a more active role against ISIS. Is that the basic reason that we're seeing this spike in violence?
Well, that's part of it, Pete, because ISIS knows how to find divisions and lines where they can exploit, just like they're doing with the Sunnis and the Shias. This is now happening with the Kurds and the Turks. And we're in their crosshairs. I mean, they can read budget lines just like everybody else, and they see our significant budget cuts in our Department of Defense, and they sense weakness out of the White House, and this is going to continue to happen.
Pete, some in our intelligence community say ISIS may be plotting to launch mass casualty attacks here stateside, which is obviously a significant departure from the lone rats we've seen recently. Do you expect that change in strategy?
Well, I think, number one, we have to recognize that ISIS focus is strengthening, maintaining, and increasing the size of the caliphate in the Syrian and Iraq territory. That's what they're all about. They want to have the caliphate, that center of power. If they believe that a mass attack in Europe or in the United States will help them get more recruits and help strengthen their cause in establishing that caliphate, they will use it. Do I believe that's in their planning, that's in their toolbox? Absolutely. They use the internet, but they're very concerned about their messaging and their perception in the jihadist world. A successful attack somewhere in the West would enable them to once again claim success.
With 2 minutes remaining, Patrick, I'm interested in your assessment. Is this ISIS trying to compete in a perverse way with al-Qaeda, the whole specter of mass casualty attacks here?
Well, what we know about terrorist organizations is they need a base of operations. It's just like al-Qaeda had under the auspices of the Taliban in Afghanistan, and ISIS now has that same base of operations inside of Iraq and Syria as well. There is no question, JD, but they would love to have a mass casualty exercise either here in the United States or in Europe. And just as Pete said, this is something these guys on social networking are off the charts in terms of how they do their recruiting and everything else. So that would not surprise me one bit, but that doesn't mean that they would steer away from these so-called lone wolf attacks. Those will continue as well.
Pete, with the minute that remains, let's discuss the Iran deal. More Democrats coming out against this agreement. You and I have both been up on the Hill. I'm interested in your assessment. Is Obama's Iran deal in trouble?
I think it's in trouble, but does it mean that it's going to be defeated? I think that's still a long reach to get to the point where you're going to defeat this on the Hill. But Think about this, J.D. He's trying to compare this to the arms control agreement back in the 60s or going to war in Iraq. In both of those cases, Presidents Kennedy, President Bush, they went to Congress and got overwhelming majorities to support their foreign policy. In this case, this president is going to struggle to get 1/3 of the Senate and 1/3 of the House to support his policies. Think about what he'd be saying if President Bush went to war in Iraq with only 34 senators voting in favor of him. The Congress and the American people are not behind this strategy.
We will have to leave it there. Gentlemen, we thank you for your comments. Now, what about your comments at home? Best way to send them to me, newsmaxtv.com/comments.